What's going on YouTube? WestHobbiesRC. So today we are back with version 2 of the Monster 380 build. So we have a 380 here. As you guys seen in the last one, we crashed it. We got another one. So now let's build it, change it up, make it faster, better, stronger. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get started. So what are we gonna do on this one? So as you can see, this one is missing the head. This is a complete. It's missing canopy mounts, no motor head, but it's a completed airframe. So we have the original head and swash plate off the crashed one, new feathering shaft. This is the only thing that pretty much survived without severe damage. Of course, we have another set of Switch 383s. Huge shout out to Bert. He handed these to me at IRCHA when we were trying to build one for Speed Cup. We just didn't have time, but thank you, Bert, for sending me the giving me the 383s. We have the Hobby Wing 150, of course, MKS servos on cyclic. We just took them out. They're still all routed, so we can literally drop them right back in. Of course, V-Bar Neo. The case is cracked. We do have an aluminum case that should be here today or tomorrow, so I glued it back together, but we're going to put an aluminum case on the V-Bar Neo. We are going to run a different motor this time. We are going to run an X-Nova 3225 1100 kV. We are still staying 8S, but we are running a bigger motor, taller, more torque, maybe hopefully more power. We have a different motor mount. This is the cooled motor mount with bigger fins. It's also 4-volt, so that'll help with heat. One thing we also did, a new motor mount or motor belt, new pulley, and then I made these are stiffener plates, and they're going to go into the frame, and you'll see so they don't crack from the excess power. So let's start building. We got the motor mounted, not Loctited, just mounted to the new mount and sitting into the frame here. We got to clean all this foam stuff off. But so these that I made, these stiffener plates, 2mm carbon fiber, and the main reason for making them is this is a big motor for a 380, and we are going 8S again. So the frame is a weak spot. The frame will crack in between. So it can crack right here, and it also likes to break right here under this kind of power. So what these stiffener plates are gonna do is they're gonna tie the frame together. So we're gonna go off of this screw that I removed to this hole right there, and then our motor screws are gonna go through here, lock to the mount, and this is going to be epoxied into place, just like that. And then our frame is now completely tied from back here to up here. It'll really stiffen all this up. The other side does not have a hole in it, so that is just going to sit down in there just like that. That's going to get epoxied. We can pull the motor out now, mark these, epoxy it, let it dry overnight, and then we can come back to final mounting the motor. I just epoxied the plates on, as you can see. I just got some clamps holding them in place, wiped it all down with alcohol. So now I'm going to let that cure overnight. But while that's curing, I need to cut this shaft down. So I'm just going to take my cutoff wheel in a Dremel, put my motor in a Ziploc bag, cutoff wheel on the Dremel. First, I'm going to grind the flat spot, and then I'm going to cut the shaft at this mark. Very simple to do, but just use a sandwich bag, poke a hole, shove your motor through. That way no shavings or anything gets down in the magnet. I Loctited it originally and realized I had to take it back out. All right, let that dry, cut the motor shaft, final mount the motor onto the new mount, and hopefully we can, by this time that's done, we can throw the motor back in the helicopter. And the shaft is done, super simple, grinded flat spot, cut it off to the length we needed. For you guys that have said in other videos, it's normal, especially on a universal shaft, to have to cut them, grind them, or shorten them. You can always buy new shafts, X-Nova cell shafts, Ego Drift. Don't worry about cutting and grinding a flat spot. So now let's throw the motor mount on here and the pinion on here, Loctite everything down, and get this ready to go in there. Motor is fully mounted, Loctited. So now these are about 2 hours later. So they're tacky, they hold themselves in place. So I'm gonna throw the motor in and bolt it all down. I'm not gonna Loctite it, I'm just gonna bolt it all down to help clamp these side plates and see how it all looks. Plates are dried, motor is final mounted. Give a huge shout out to Brian. Brian surprised me with this motor. He said on version 2, we have to make it go faster, and I said, done. So thank you, Brian, for the X-Nova 3225. So this thing should be even faster and more powerful. All right, now solder up bullet connectors, mount ESC, start mounting servos, and get the head and everything on and start making this thing a completed Speed 380. Servos are all back in, cyclic and tail is mounted, motor belt is fully tightened. So now we are going to put the head and swash plate on here, grease up our shafts. I replaced the feathering shaft already after the crash, and keep moving back. Head and swash plate are in, all servos are done. So now we are going to mount the ESC, solder motor wires, run all those wires back. One thing I need to do is I need to pull these tail belt tensioners out and loosen them up, because this pulley here is real tight and this one doesn't feel very loose, and the spring is very gummy, as you can see. So we need to fix that. Now it's starting to free up. I think it's just gummed up. So let's get that done, ESC, and then once we have all the wiring done, we can put the tail boom back on. New tail belt, of course, and new push rod, because I don't know exactly how this one was made up, how it was glued, so I don't want to risk it. New push rod. Let's keep going forward. ESC is mounted. Motor leads are soldered up, zip tied, 6mm bullet connectors. Everything is run back all the way up to our V-bar. We have our V-bar mounted. Nice aluminum case. So now, before we move on to gluing the push rod, I want to go ahead and get the canopy knocked out. So unfortunately, this motor, X-Nova 3225, is so tall that it is going to hit the canopy. So we are going to have to open this up a little bit. I'm going to start at the 3, and hopefully I don't have to go too far, but we're going to have to open it up so we can clearance the motor and we don't rub the top of the beautiful X-Nova. So let's get that done, see what it looks like, and then start epoxying the tail push rod. And now the motor clears. So I had to cut a little bit more than I would like to have cut away. I went all the way into the 8, but I cut it out as least as I could to try to make it look as good as I could. But this was already this wide, so what would have been ideal is if there was no cutout here and I could have just cut out the opening for the motor, but I don't think it came out too bad. It's going to allow plenty of airflow into the motor, and then you can kind of see that profile, how the motor sticks out just like that. So that part is done. Now let's move on to making the new push rod and getting that done so we can get the boom back on the helicopter. Push rod is now completed. So it is Kevlar wrapped and then soaked in CA on both ends. I do this on every push rod that doesn't have the metal sleeves on them. And it starts the binding right here onto your metal and then goes up into the carbon, makes an incredibly strong joint and something that will not fail, slip, or break. So now I'm going to cover it in heat shrink just so it all looks black and put it in the tail boom. Push rod is installed back in the helicopter, all heat shrunk, so the tail boom is ready to go back on the main frame now. We got all of our wires ran through. We still have to clean these up a little bit, but got our wires ran through, telemetry up. Got it zip tied, our junction right here to keep it away from the boom. So now we're going to pull the V-bar back off and get the boom mounted to the helicopter. I ended up pulling these tensioner guides off because they are very gummed up. The bearings are gone. I'm going to have to replace the bearings. I don't know if there's some kind of Loctite or whatever got in there, but I didn't have them on the first one, so I will get these freed up and then I can install them later. They're very simple. They just screw in from the top right there. So let's get the boom back on the helicopter. Boom is all back on. Belt is tensioned. So now we are just finishing up mounting the V-bar for the final time. Telemetry plugged in. But one thing I want to touch on, a lot of you guys ask, what is the black stuff that I put across the servo leads? I've made several videos about this, but it is fabric paint. It is a puffy fabric paint. You can get it at Walmart, Amazon. It's like $4. And it dries hard, but it also peels off if need be. So I put a heavy bead across just like that. And then if I have this lead here, I will plug that in as well. Get that plugged in. And then I will run another bead right across the top of that and let that dry. That eliminates the plugs from ever pulling out. Looks better than hot glue or any of those goop glues. And when it dries, if you need to get it back off, you can take a X-Acto knife or razor blade and just peel it right back off of there. So we just got done going through the setup, making sure all of our servos are back to 90 degrees. After any crash, when you're using any kind of plastic horn, the SAB horns are really good horns, but always pull them and make sure that the splines are not stripped. So I went ahead and replaced all 3 of my horns, but this one here had stripped splines, and I could tell by when I went into setup that servo was all the way down. So it's just a good thing after any crash, regardless how big, how small, check your horns. But now we can call this one done. So the 380 version 2 is complete. Let's throw our brand new set of switched 383s on there and see what this thing looks like all finished up. Blades are on. That motor looks incredible. X Nova for the win. The custom frame plates that we made. So 2mm carbon, bigger motor mount. We got more power. Still Hobbywing 150, MKS servos, V-Bar Neo. We are going to test this one very soon. So there you guys go, the build series on the 380 Monster version 2. But first, we need to get the canopy on and see it all finished up. Woo! I didn't think the 380 could look any better, but man, that yellow looks awesome. That's an awesome scheme. So there you guys go. The new 380 Monster version 2. That X Nova motor's peeking out right there. We got more power, frame stiffeners, got them switch 383s. Since I only got 1.5 flights on the last one, I think it came out pretty good. So I'm excited to get some flights on this one. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Take care and have a great day.